Hey, this is Charles with Rocky Mountain ATV MC. Today I'm going to show you how to inspect and replace your clutch plates on a Suzuki DRZ400. The reason we have this DRZ in the shop today is because our clutch is slipping. Now, if your clutch is slipping on your bike, you want to get it taken care of as soon as possible because the problem can progress quickly and eventually leave you stranded. Now, how to tell if your clutch is slipping is you'll go to give it gas and the engine RPM will increase, but the vehicle has little or no increase in speed. Now, this is more apparent under hard acceleration. Now, the DRZ has a pretty tall first gear, which really becomes apparent when you're out in tight technical off-road riding. Now, we did have this bike out in some of that gnarlier riding and the clutch was slipping a little bit, which means we either have a clutch that's out of adjustment, some worn clutch plates, or some weak clutch springs. Now, this process will be similar for the DRZ400S, DRZ400E, and DRZ400SM. The bike we're working on today is a 2012 DRZ400S, so let's go ahead and show you how to get these clutch plates replaced. To do this job, we have some common hand tools, rags, safety glasses, we've got our oil drain pan, and we also have a digital caliper and some feeler gauges. You'll also need your OEM service manual for more information, proper procedures, and specs. The parts we're using today are the Tusk Competition Clutch Pack with heavy-duty springs, and the reason we went with this kit is because it will hold up to the extreme riding conditions we plan on taking this bike through, and it keeps everything simple because it includes the friction plates, drive plates, and heavy-duty springs. We also have our Tusk oil change kit. This comes with your choice of oil, some crush washers and O-rings, and then also your oil filter. We have our Pro X clutch cover gasket and some contact cleaner. You want to have a clean bike to start out with, so the first thing we need to check is the clutch free play to see if that was correct or not. If we pull this cover back, we'll check this free play on our clutch. And what the free play is how far you can move this lever before you start to feel resistance. So ours has a little bit of free play, about a nickel's worth free play in there. That's about what you want. If it's way more or less, you'll definitely want to adjust it. If it's less, you have the chance of burning up your clutch plates. And if you have more free play than that, it's going to be hard to put it in and out of gear. And how to adjust that is just with this adjuster up top. That's taking free play away, and turning it in is adding free play. And if you can't get enough adjustment with that, you also have this adjuster right here. If this measurement checks out okay, or if you had to adjust this and the clutch still slips, then the problem is probably going to be in your clutch pack. To start out, we're going to get our new clutch plates soaking, and that way they'll be ready for us when we go to put them on the bike. The next thing we'll do is drain the oil out of our engine. Then we have another 12mm head drain bolt on the frame. Next, we'll clean the drain plug sealing surfaces with a rag. Next, we'll remove the old crush washers from our drain plugs, clean up the drain plug, and install the new crush washers that came in our kit. Then we'll reinstall both drain plugs. The next thing we'll do is remove our oil filter cover with these three nuts right here. We'll remove the O-ring and the oil filter. For our oil filter, we do have an O-ring back here on this engine case, so I'm going to take this off, and our kit came with a new O-ring for that. Then I'll wipe around where this oil filter cover seals. Wipe down the oil filter cover, then we'll clean this off a little better using some contact cleaner. Now we'll take a little bit of oil and install it onto our new O-ring. We'll take our new oil filter, put that into place. Then we'll take our new O-ring that came in our oil change kit, put that onto our cover, and we'll install the oil filter cover. So now we need to gain access to our clutch cover. To do that, we're going to remove this brake lever. So I'm going to remove the cotter pin on the back side of this bolt back here. We'll remove the pivot bolt. And keep in mind, there's a washer behind here. Don't lose that. And we'll also release the spring on the back side of this lever. On the clutch cover, there is a bolt that has a crush washer on it, and I'm gonna mark where that goes, and then we'll remove this clutch cover. Now these bolts are different sizes, so it's important you keep track of which bolts go where. Next, we'll remove this clutch cover, and our gasket stuck to the surface, we'll take that off too. So now what we need to do is remove our clutch springs. So to do that, we'll loosen up these bolts in a crisscross pattern, and we'll do it in a few steps at a time. Next, I'll remove the pressure plate. Okay, so now I'm gonna use a hook tool, and I'm just gonna remove the clutch pack. And as I'm pulling these off, you can see this thing got really hot at one point in time. This is supposed to be just a regular metal surface, and this thing has a lot of bluing on it. So anytime they look like that, you definitely want to replace the clutch pack as a set, and there's a good chance that this is warped. So this bike also has some judder springs, and you want to note the direction and order they're in so you can get them back in the correct orientation. So there's a couple of inspections we need to make to the clutch hub and clutch basket. So for the hub, we're going to look where these steel plates ride on it and check for any grooving. If the grooving's really bad, you'll want to replace this. And same thing on the clutch basket. If there are deep grooves in this, you'll definitely want to replace it before you move forward. The other inspection we need to make is to check this clutch basket. There's some dampers on the back, and we'll rock it side to side. If there's a lot of play in this, then you know those dampers are bad. Next, we'll inspect the pressure plate, and to do that, I want to inspect this bearing right here and make sure it rotates freely and smooth. You also inspect this surface that our friction disc rides on for any wear or damage. Now, as we mentioned earlier, we are replacing our clutch pack, but if you're just checking your clutch to see if everything's okay, what you can do is measure these friction discs and compare them to the spec in your manual. If any of them are out of spec, you'll replace the whole clutch pack. Like I mentioned earlier, these steel plates on ours are bad, but if you do need to check them, you can put these on a surface plate and measure for warpage using a feeler gauge. So the next measurement we need to take is the spring free length. We'll use our digital caliper for that, and we need to make sure these are in spec if you're going to reuse these, but our kit did come with new springs, so we'll just use those. If any of these parts do not meet specifications, you'll need to replace them. Now we're just about ready for reassembly. Sometimes a bad clutch will have a bunch of friction material in here. If your clutch has that in there, you'll want to spray it out with some contact cleaner and clean this up. For us, what we're going to do, we need to clean this gasket sealing surface for the clutch cover. And our bike doesn't have all that clutch material inside of here, so I'm going to go ahead and reinstall these plates. So to start out, I put a little bit of fresh oil on this flat washer and judder spring. So on ours, the flat washer goes down first, and then the judder spring goes on, so the concave side faces out. And then this next friction disc that's going on, it's going to be a larger inside diameter than the other plates. So that's going to be our first friction plate we install. And depending on what clutch pack you bought, some of the aftermarket ones may not use these judder springs. So in that case, you would follow the instructions with the kit, or if there's no instructions, you're just going to eliminate the judder springs. Now we're going to install a steel plate on here, and these steel plates, they have a sharp edge and a rounded side, and you want all the edges facing the same way, whether that's towards the engine or away from it. I'm going to install the sharp edges facing away from the engine. So now we can just alternate between friction discs and steel plates. Now while we did this, we didn't remove the push rod, but make sure it's still in place, and then we'll install the pressure plate. Next, we'll take our new springs. We'll install these and tighten the bolts down in a crisscross pattern. And keep in mind, you'll want to tighten these down in a couple different steps. Next, we'll clean up the clutch cover. Now I'll take our new clutch cover gasket and I'm going to put just a little bit of grease on it. That's going to help keep it in place while I install the cover. All right, now we'll take our cover and we'll install this onto the bike. And remembering where these longer bolts went, I'll first install these. Then we'll install the 3 shorter bolts. Now we'll tighten them all down. Now we'll reinstall the brake pedal and use a little bit of new grease on this pivot. Next, we'll pour in 1,800 milliliters of 10W40 oil. Reinstall the dipstick, run the bike for a minute, and then you'll recheck your oil level. After that, you can go for a test drive. And that's all there is to replacing the clutch plates on your DRZ400. This is really easy to do, and if you need these parts, they're available on our website. We also have OEM and aftermarket parts, so be sure to check that out. And if you like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel because we have a ton of other helpful videos on there. Thanks for watching.